Destin Daniel Cretton, I could kiss you on the mouth right now. Brand New Day was everything I could have ever dreamed of and then some. After 5 excruciatingly long years of waiting to see Spider-Man again in the MCU, the wallcrawler is finally back and better than ever in a movie that was so good I already bought tickets to see it again. This film was the best thing to happen to me in a long time, and that's saying a lot because I just got Spider-Man head. For a movie that was my most anticipated of the year, and maybe of this entire saga, I am so glad to say that I loved every single second of Spider-Man Brand New Day. So how do I even begin to talk about a movie like that? There is so much I want to praise and discuss, but this is going to be a non-spoiler review to try and contain my yapping before the spoiler-filled review goes up in a few days. So with all of that out of the way, let me tell you why I loved Brand New Day so much, and why you will too. This is a beautifully mature character study that is shot in the most exciting way possible. Even with a lot to balance, it all comes together in the most satisfying finale that had me crying. I think the best thing I can say about this movie is that it made me feel like a kid again discovering Spider-Man for the first time. Brand New Day gets exactly what makes that character so special as the most pure Spider-Man movie to date. It's like you ripped him straight out of a comics and then threw him into the world of the MCU. God, man, I just love Spider-Man so much. I am so happy right now. And also, still crying a little bit too, but mostly just riding the biggest Spidey high of my life. I need to give all the credit to Tom Holland because there isn't enough honey in the world to glaze him with. If you thought I was a glazer before this, I'm about to put all of that to shame here. Tom already was before Brand New Day, but this movie solidified him as my favorite Spider-Man ever. You know what, no, I would go even further to say that he is the definitive Spider-Man, and I will fight you in the parking lot if you disagree with me. Let's go. He's talked a big game about doing so much research into what the fans actually wanted with Spider-Man post No Way Home, and you can tell his input was taken seriously in this movie because it feels like a Spider-Man fan's dream come true. Despite the appearances of some larger-than-life characters, it never loses focus on the street level and mental health aspect of Spider-Man, which is a treat to watch. I am forever appreciated that he made our voices heard in that writer's room, but did things in an exciting way that I didn't even see coming. That right there is the mark of a good storyteller and tells me he knows exactly what he's doing with this character. And on top of all that, Brand New Day is easily his best performance to date as he sits in Peter's sadness and makes you feel every crushing ounce of isolation. I say this with a whole lot of love and even more enthusiasm, but Peter Parker has never suffered more in his life, and it made me disgustingly happy to see him wallow in that depression as he is completely alone without anyone in his life who even cares about him. I ate that up. Despite how much MCU Spider-Man has suffered in the past, you could really argue he suffered more than Jesus, I don't think he's suffered enough. So I love that Brand New Day dedicates an entire movie to exploring how miserable Peter is and that it is entirely his own fault. It's such a gripping study of loneliness that doesn't pull any punches and even hits a little too close to home at points. Warning: if you're in your 20s constantly feeling burnt out from throwing yourself into your work as you begin drifting away from your friends as they move on while you're thrust into adulthood with your childhood dreams slipping through your fingertips, forced to confront the cold, dark reality of the world, this movie's gonna be a little too real for you. What I'm trying to say is that this is my Black Panther and exactly the kind of movie I needed right now. It's an immensely comforting hug and important reminder that you're never truly alone. That kind of story only works with a great actor leading, and Tom Holland is just that. There is nobody else who could play Peter Parker and Spider-Man as good as he can. What an insane summer he's having, man. Between the Odyssey and now Brand New Day, he is continually one-upping himself as he gets to prove that he is exactly who he thinks he is, a bona fide star. The range of emotions he gets to show in Brand New Day is so much wider than previous movies as there's a whole new layer of vulnerability he gets to explore. Because of that, Spider-Man has never felt more authentic to me. The charm of this character has always been that he's just a regular guy under that mask, so to see this movie go all out with that as Peter's problems are more grounded and emotional than ever pulls at all the right heartstrings. More than that though, it's all of the little nuances he adds to his performance that make him feel like the Spider-Man here. In the Infinity Saga, Tom played Peter as a kid who was always unsure of himself and trying to be as polite as possible when he had to, but wasn't afraid to talk back. He was basically doing a Marty McFly impression when you think about it, and that really worked. But it's been 5 years since we last saw Peter, and he's in a much different place now than he was then, as he's practically living in a Paramore song. Tom understands that and plays him so much differently as he sounds more adult when he speaks, and he even threw in a much heavier New York accent. It's little things like that which do a lot to show how far Peter has come as this grown-up and a proper New Yorker through and through. Most impressively though is how he plays Spider-Man and Peter Parker almost like two completely different characters, with their worlds starting to crash into each other due to his own self-destructive tendencies. When playing Peter, it's almost like there's this constant sense of dread he's trying to outrun, never fully happy and just barely surviving as his world starts to crumble around him, a shell of his former self with a deep sadness behind those eyes. But when he's Spider-Man, the mask isn't just physical, as he emotionally hides behind those projected quips. He's at his happiest when he's in the spandex and gets to feel alive, knowing that he's making a difference in the world as someone that people actually care about. They're two opposite ends of the spectrum that start to get closer together as the movie progresses, and the reason that change is so notable is because of how well Tom plays those two parts of his identity. He is such a good actor, man. It is a lot to balance, but he does it all effortlessly to give us a version of Spidey that feels more alive and relatable than ever. Plus, when he's in the costume, his body language has completely changed as he brings some of those Garfieldisms back to the character. He is so much more animated to make up for the lack of emotion he can show with his face under that mask, hitting dynamic poses that you'd previously only find in the comics. Both physically and verbally, Tom looks and sounds exactly like how I always imagined Spider-Man would if he were real, especially when he's bouncing off of characters like the Punisher. They just became one of my favorite duos ever. Every single time they share a frame together, I could not stop laughing. The only times I wasn't laughing was when I was trying my hardest not to cry. I was not prepared for the emotional moments they have together, but I'm so thankful they decided to put Frank in this movie. Honestly, I think this is the most I've ever enjoyed the Punisher in the MCU. Yes, even more than in Daredevil Season 2. Don't get me wrong, he is incredible there. But back then, the Punisher was in origin mode. This is the first time we have ever properly seen Frank Castle embrace his role as the Punisher, as he's not retiring every 5 goddamn minutes. Here in Brand New Day, he works so well as a cautionary tale for Peter and a real wall-to-wall asshole for him to bounce off of as they're both thrust into this mystery. I really love that they have this pre-established relationship they constantly make reference to and cannot stand each other. It's even better because Peter isn't afraid to talk back to Frank and put him in his place. It's the exact kind of relationship we needed to see Spider-Man have at this point in his career. Their dynamic is truly sensational and would be the highlight of the movie if it weren't for MJ. It was a massive gamble to bring MJ and Ned back immediately after No Way Home, but Brand New Day takes that as a challenge and revolves the entire story around them in a way that feels necessary. I am so glad that they're here, as they add so much needed weight and tension to every scene as Peter is forced to live within arm's reach of the life he always wanted, yet is completely unobtainable. It works so well to twist the knife and torture him with what could have been as he debates in his head whether or not he did the right thing. And to nobody's surprise, Tom and Zendaya have generational chemistry together. It's almost like they're married or something. Every single time they're on screen, my heart skips a beat and my eyes start to water. Those quiet, tender moments they share with each other are now my favorite MCU Spider-Man scenes of all time. One of my biggest complaints about the Home trilogy is that MJ doesn't really get to be her own character, and we don't get nearly enough romance between her and Peter. Brand New Day fixes that by prioritizing MJ again, getting to see her life outside of Peter's, and making her the single most important character in this movie as we see how much she means to Peter when his life is completely empty and void of any joy without her. There's two scenes in particular I can't stop thinking about, with one of them being something completely unexpected that immediately solidified this film as a favorite of mine. It is a hugely subversive risk that pays off and enriches the entire narrative. I don't think I could or even want to imagine this movie without her in it. The drama and turmoil her presence brings every time she appears is unmatched. And Zendaya, oh my god, Zendaya is doing some of her best work ever in this movie. That one scene I mentioned earlier is so good because of her and the performance she's giving as she puts everything into this role. The confusion, the yearning, the confidence, it's all there and feels so right. The way Brand New Day handles MJ might be the biggest example of the creative team just getting it when it comes to Spider-Man stories. It's not just purposeless torture like in the comics, but a story that progresses things in new, unexpected ways. That's all thanks to Destin Daniel Cretton. There aren't enough good things I can say about that god in the director's chair. He's been one of my favorite directors ever since the moment I first watched Short Term 12, a movie you all need to watch at least 4 times over because it's a genuine masterpiece that understands the human condition better than any movie I've ever seen, and you can tell Destin brought that mindset into Brand New Day. Above all else, this is a character-driven movie. Every single choice is in service of making these characters as interesting as possible in the way they interact with each other. It honestly feels like an indie Spider-Man movie in that sense. We've still got the big, exciting action set pieces and all the MCU connections that make this movie great, but the heart of the film revolves around the human connection and that sense of community. It makes it stand out from other superhero movies with a more unconventional structure, but it is so welcomed as Destin hyper-focuses on what makes Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Spider-Man has never felt so human. This raw exploration of his problems is greatly appreciated as he injects so much new energy into this franchise. There's a ton of heart in this movie bursting out of every scene. You can tell he is a legitimate Spider-Man fan who wants nothing but the best for the character. Not just in the wish fulfillment of all the comic book covers brought to life, which warmed my nerd heart, but more so it's felt in the actual direction he takes the character. There's a real soulful and sincere approach to storytelling in the film that could only come from a true fan of Spider-Man. Someone who isn't afraid to take risks and walk the line between familiarity and the unknown as he pushes Spidey into places we've never seen before, but keeps that core of the character alive, even more so than we've seen in previous MCU movies. It's not like they're sacrificing any of his characteristics to try and do something new, as it's the situations they put him in that feel more Spider-Man than ever, if I can use that as an adjective for a second. The term street level gets thrown around a lot, mostly by me, but this movie is by far the most street level Spider-Man film to date. The stakes are high, but it's not because the fate of the multiverse hangs in the balance. It's the emotional weight the characters have interacting with each other as Peter stands up for the little guy and protects his city. Real small potato stuff that couldn't feel more impactful. There's very clearly a back-to-basics approach in this movie as we see MCU Spider-Man inhabit the same status quo as the comics for the first time ever. He's no longer making suits in a private jet with a fancy fabricator or fighting alongside the Avengers. He's dumpster diving for tech and surviving in this dusty-ass apartment littered with filth. But, like any good director, Destin isn't just doing the same old status quo we're used to. He reinforced the mantra of a brand new day and put his own spin on Spider-Man with a mix of tech and organic webbing, new supporting characters that completely change his dynamic in the world, and a fresh start to fully explore. Brand New Day doesn't waste the clean slate No Way Home gave them as Destin takes the ball, runs with it, and then dunks on John Watts' head. The web swinging is the biggest example of this, as MCU Spider-Man is finally having long sequences where he's swinging through New York City. Something that was saved for rare moments in the last trilogy is now a common thing that looks cooler than ever thanks to Destin's creative eye, giving us unique shots like this and insane point of view shots. He just has that sauce, man, as he brings this creative intuition to push boundaries of what's possible and give us the best Spider-Man movements in live action. You can't teach inspiration like that as he brings his own distinct style to Brand New Day that perfectly fits and elevates the character. To put this movie in terms that a Spider-Man fan would understand, he combines the sauce of the web movies with the storytelling of Raimi, along with the technical prowess of the MCU, all while putting a fresh spin on it to make it feel like the definitive Spider-Man adaptation. I owe him my life along with all the praise in the world for steering this ship into the right direction. I've always been someone who will happily defend the Home trilogy with my dying breath as they tried to do something new. Live-action Spider-Man was in a really weird place after they fumbled Andrew's movies, and the Home trilogy was exactly what we needed at the time. It was a breath of fresh air that took Spider-Man places he'd never been before and had him teaming up with heroes that seemed like an impossibility before that. Without those movies, I don't think Brand New Day would hit as hard as it does. They were necessary to make us miss the status quo, and Destin absolutely understood that. But after watching Brand New Day, this is one of those movies that makes me wonder, why weren't we doing this the entire goddamn time? If not conceptually, aesthetically, Spider-Man should have been moving like this for years. Destin understands Spider-Man on every level, from his emotional torment to being the community hero, but more than maybe any other director, it's in the way he moves, as this has my favorite action in any Spider-Man movie, and definitely some of the best in the entire MCU as a whole. It's like Destin went into this movie with the intention of shooting every scene in the coolest way possible. The combat is so fluid and dynamic as the camera is constantly moving in new ways to catch up with Spider-Man's creative choreography. It's like the combat in the Insomniac Spider-Man games came to life. I'm pretty sure they even brought some of the actual combos into this movie. There were so many moments my jaw legitimately dropped at what he was capable of, particularly in the prison fight. I'm putting my stamp on it now. That is the single best Spider-Man action scene of all time. I ascended to a higher plane of existence watching that. The actual camera work in this movie as a whole is incredibly inventive, with a much needed focus on practicality and tangibility. Destin said that he wanted to do as much of this movie in camera as possible, and trust me, you can tell, especially in comparison to the Home trilogy, which admittedly did struggle with that. The emphasis on doing things for real is felt on screen and helps to make the movie feel so real and authentic. The web swinging is actually done on location with these really cool mobile wire setups that result in a sequence that makes it look like Spider-Man is actually swinging through the street because he was. There are more practical stunts than ever as they actually have him hanging off the side of a tank in the streets. There are inventive filmmaking techniques being used as they develop a pulley system just to do this jump entirely practically. It's that extra attention to detail, the love and care that bleeds through and shows how everyone behind the camera wants to do this beloved character justice. Practical filmmaking is the coolest thing in the world as creatives get to make the impossible possible so we can suspend our disbelief for a bit and live in a world completely unlike our own while still maintaining that sense of familiarity. It's what connects me with this movie so much because you can genuinely feel the grittiness of New York on screen. When you're telling a street level story like this, it is so important that your movie actually feels like it takes place on the streets. Brand New Day goes the extra mile to capture the magic of New York City from top to bottom, whether it be the stunning city skylines or the dirty streets. It's all there. That is the return to form I'm most excited about as New York City finally feels like a character again. I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a good reason. Doing everything practically gives this movie a real personality. And that's not even talking about all the gorgeous, rich, vibrant visuals this movie has to offer. Cinematographer Brett Pollack brings a very naturalistic and rich approach to the visuals here, and it works to make New York City feel more alive than ever. The way that bright suit pops on screen is so satisfying as this is by far the most stylish and cinematic Spider-Man movie in the MCU. The colors are saturated, the contrast is bold, there's intention behind every shot composition in this movie. It is a visual feast for the eyes and a real treat to watch. And to listen to. This is by far Michael Giacchino's best Spider-Man score. Also, really great needle drops in the movie. There's two in particular, one from Tame Impala and a second from TV on the Radio that are going to be on repeat in my head for maybe the rest of the year, but to get back to Michael Giacchino, I am so immensely glad they brought him back because having the score evolve alongside Peter is the coolest thing ever. The added synths go a long way to make that theme feel brand new, but also completely change its meaning. Instead of the triumphant soundtrack we're used to, it's a lot lonelier. There's this new melancholy tone that fits the movie so well, but I love that he leaves the leitmotif incomplete as he takes a few notes out of the score. It is such a cool way to reflect how Spider-Man is ignoring Peter through music with something that both feels missing and brand new. It does a lot to constantly reinforce Peter's mindset with intentional choices that are more impactful than ever. I'm dead serious when I say this. There was one moment in the movie where I genuinely teared up from how well the score matched the scene. The second those notes kicked in, it was over for me. Giacchino is a master at this and someone we are so lucky to have working on these movies. I may be biased because I think he's my all-time favorite composer at this point, but he has truly outdone himself here, pushing Spider-Man forward with a soundtrack that meets him where he's at in the MCU. Just like how Brand New Day pushes Peter forward and utilizes the MCU better than any other Spider-Man movie. Great segue there, by the way. The world Peter inhabits feels lived in with so much going on. It is the closest live action has ever come to being the comic version of the Marvel Universe with so much chaos and superheroes around every corner. Whether it be Hulk getting dragged into a battle, Jean DeWolf being a surprise standout, or other cameos that add a ton to the world building, the MCU has never felt more cohesive than this. I really love the choice to hop right into the action and not waste time trying to set up all of these new relationships. Instead, it feels like we're dropped into a regular day for Spider-Man patrolling the streets of New York City, and that does so much to really hone in on the street-level sensibilities of the film. This is the ideal way to use Spider-Man in a cinematic universe. Sure, we've got our legally mandated tie-in characters like the Hulk, but they're used in such a smart way to enhance the narrative and directly impact Peter's growth. And then you also get moments where he's gonna go to other heroes for help because that's what you do if you lived in the Marvel Universe. This is the most complete version of the MCU to date, and a lot of that is thanks to Sadie Sink as oh yeah, I guess I can't say this video, that makes sense. Regardless, she may as well have stolen the entire movie for me. If all goes right, Sadie could end up as one of the best MCU casting decisions to date. She gives such a raw and moving performance as this movie becomes just as much hers as it is Spider-Man's. And she feels like the most natural inclusion ever with the way her journey mirrors Peter's. I am so glad they kept her out of the marketing because even with all of the theories surrounding her identity, it's a much more rewarding experience not knowing any of her scenes. What I think is most impressive about Brand New Day, especially in today's spoiler culture is that the movie genuinely surprised me. It was not at all what I expected this film to be in the slightest, but it was exactly what I needed it to be. It goes places I never would have expected a Spider-Man film to go, and never loses sight of the emotional core as they take you on this roller coaster of emotion. And since they kept Sadie's character a surprise, the film plays out like a genuine mystery that Spider-Man is trying to unravel, and results in the most emotional thing to ever happen in a Spider-Man movie. I sincerely mean that. If you're chronically online like I am, you might have seen her reveal coming or had it spoiled for you ahead of time, but it's what they do with that reveal and how they handle her character that makes it work so well. For someone like myself who adores the mystery genre, this movie was such a joy as we got to watch Spider-Man play detective for 2 hours. I know this section was supposed to be about Sadie Sink, but she's legitimately impossible to talk about without spoiling anything, and if I say any more, they're gonna shoot me, so just know that she is a gem in this movie. The future of the MCU is brighter than ever in her hands as they use her to expand the universe, but most importantly, comment on where Peter is at mentally. But here's the thing, Brand New Day is not a perfect movie, and I'm not just saying that because Kate Bishop wasn't in it, although if she was, I would be willing to excuse any amount of flaws. Thankfully, there's not many here to talk about either. This movie is so close to being perfect. It takes a second to find its footing in that first act, but the third act is so satisfying that it completely makes up for any missteps in the pacing. With a movie introducing a whole new status quo like this, it takes its time introducing every element and giving it the care it deserves. Thankfully, it's never boring and always is compelling to watch, but it does take its time for the story to really kick into gear as it has to balance a lot of stuff. That means that with so much going on, it does feel like some characters can get lost in the shuffle a little bit. I wouldn't say it's overstuffed, I don't get that complaint I've seen whatsoever, because everyone has an extremely important role in the movie and pushing Peter's growth further, but I do think the marketing gave me some expectations that didn't fully pan out. This is something I could really see improving on a rewatch now that I know what to expect in the movie, especially because it thankfully doesn't hurt any of the emotional moments that matter. It's just that leaving the theater, I did want more out of the supporting cast. Still, this is undoubtedly the most excited I've ever felt about Spider-Man in live action. Destin has such an inspired vision for the character that Tom is bringing to life in the most rewarding way possible. I swear to God, if he's not announced for a Spider-Man sequel by the time I wake up tomorrow, something is deeply wrong at Marvel Studios. The future of Spider-Man has never been more hopeful with them in charge, so I truly hope they stick around for more. Get it? Because he's like he organic webbing. You get it, it's fine. Oh yeah, also, here's my Spider-Man ranking. Please don't hurt me. I know Spider-Man fans can get rabid for saying that you like Far From Home, but it has Mysterio in it, so I love it. As it stands right now, Spider-Man Brand New Day is my favorite live-action Spider-Man movie, which is high praise, I know, but I mean every word of that. Is Brand New Day the best Spider-Man movie ever made? No, because I don't know if anything will ever top Into the Spider-Verse for me, but it's the best live-action Spider-Man movie in my opinion, and by far my favorite Spider-Man film to date. There's a difference between being the best and my favorite, okay? This movie really spoke to me on an emotional level that no other Spider-Man film has, and cut deep to give me the Spider-Man I've always dreamed of seeing on the big screen. It is such a special movie, I can already see myself watching time and time again. I'm already itching to go watch it right now. It's a Spider-Man movie that reminds you why you like this character so much, and then makes you fall in love with him all over again. It's emotional, sincere, and earnest in all the right ways that really does feel like a warm hug, and a reminder that you are not alone. I don't know if there's anything more Spider-Man than that. Oh god, I'm feeling so good after watching that movie right now. Absolutely nothing could ruin my mood. They did what? They canceled Wonder Man! After Destin just directed their best movie in years? Okay, that's absurd. Ooh, deep breaths, gotta stay calm. Can't end another video on a crash out. You know what? I gotta go watch Brand New Day in an hour anyways. I'm gonna end the video there. Why don't you just let me know what you thought about Spider-Man Brand New Day? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm gonna hop into your body and force you to do it anyways, so you might as well just save me the trouble and subscribe with your own free will. Especially so you can watch the spoiler video soon. Gotta get the cheap plug in there.